Welcome to the 359th episode of the Jami Dulaney Plant-Based Wellness Podcast. My name is Jami Dulaney, and I'm your host. I'm a plant-based cardiologist and endurance athlete living in Southwest Florida. Happy New Year! Well, in 1 week and a day, I will be starting the long-haul 100-mile ultra marathon for the third time. 2024 was successful. 2025 was not successful, so we're going to hope for a good success. As we're going to talk about longevity and stressors and how they may be good for you, this is certainly going to stress my body a little bit over hopefully just less than 30 hours. There'll be some sun exposure, but not a lot. Temperatures are going to be in the high 30s to 60s down here in Florida, so it'll be a little cold in the evening, cold and damp in the middle of the night. But again, another stressor, so all good. There'll be some mindfulness training. There are some specific sites on the course that I can remember from 2024 that, some major turning points, you might say. One was, I can say probably a quarter mile into the fourth loop, or I guess maybe fifth loop, that I thought, no, I don't think I can go any further. It's not fair. I can't face the mud, blah, 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 and came around. And then there was another area where we were running through the deep mud with our lights dimming. I think my pacer, Tim Marie, and I were down to one headlight between us, and we ran along some other people, and everybody was struggling pretty good at that point, hoping for daybreak soon. And we kind of start talking about what story do you want to tell? Do you want to tell the story about how you quit or the story about how you finish? The buckle was not too enticing at that time. For anybody that's not listened to these things, for a 100-mile race, you get a belt buckle, big shiny belt buckle. But that was no longer, so coveted. It was more of how will the legacy of this race pan out? And I wanted to tell the story of how it was hard and how I finished strong and finished, as opposed to, quit while I was in the mud. And so that kind of kept me going. So I'm hoping to hang on to those next week when I get in similar spots and I can get a hold of myself, so to speak, and send it in a more positive direction. But given it's the new year and a lot of people have resolutions, and a lot of those New Year's resolutions revolve around health and longevity, and we'd all like to live as long as we possibly can. A lot of people, myself included, live as long as you can doing the things that you want to do, not just be alive to be alive, so to speak. And there are a lot of people online that have these biohacks or are doing experiments of one on their longevity projects. And whether there's some good ideas in all of them, the question comes, how much is it worth to live a couple more days or maybe even a couple more years, and how much energy would you be willing to put into it? And I kind of pulled up 3 people that come up online a fair amount, and some of the stuff is pretty wild, but I think there's some good takeaways, and we can kind of relate it to what perhaps is doable for the average person. There's a man named Brian Johnson who is very wealthy and doing an experiment of one, looking to improve his longevity. He believes that he has turned back his aging clock from in his 50s to in his 30s. According to biomarkers and MRIs and blood tests, he is reportedly spends about $2 million a year to try to do this, and leads pretty much an isolated lifestyle, taking 300 supplements a month, doing multiple different experiments with blood transfusions, plasmapheresis, different light therapies, cold therapies, cryotherapies, on and on and on, to try to improve his longevity. He eats a certain way that's very specific, that's the same day in and day out, a predominantly raw vegan diet with caloric restriction. Again, he takes a bunch of supplements, and goes to bed at the same time, gets up at the same time, very regimented, that pretty much excludes a lot of people from his life, and he's very concerned about, again, his self and how he can live long enough to hopefully find a cure for death. So that would be the most extreme person. There's another man called David Pesco. He spends about $30,000 a year. He takes about someplace between 80 and 150 supplements. He starts his morning with a green banana and tongue scraping, does some lemon tea that he makes. He is into exercise, doing things like trampoline, jumping, cardio, weights, P90X. He does hot therapy with sauna, cold therapy. He does monthly blood tests and bone density to track his improvement in his biological age. He eats an omnivore diet, meaning that he does eat meat. He doesn't use added sugar. He doesn't eat processed foods. He tries to add fermented foods. He uses a weight vest. He believes in getting outside. He does balance work. He doesn't eat 3 hours before bed. He has a certain sleep regimen that he follows very strictly. He takes omega-3s, B12. So, again, very dedicated to his own longevity experiment. The woman of the crowd, Julie Clark, she claims that her biological age is in her 30s when her actual age is in her 50s, and she says she can do it on $4 a day. She believes in consistency over perfection, so she is much less regimented as the other two. She gets up at 4 to 5 o'clock in the morning, but not on the weekends. She has quiet time, meditates, reads, drinks tea. She trains her body 6 days a week, divided into 3 strength sessions and 3 cardio sessions. She does 20 to 30 minutes of sauna, followed by a 5-minute of cold shower. She eats 11 pounds of vegetables a day and 100 grams of protein that can come from animal sources. She takes a green juice supplement with collagen. Her lunch example would be a vegetable, eggs, and meat. Dinner might be a steak, greens, and sardines. She takes some supplements, but not nearly as much as the other people: B vitamins, fish oil, probiotics, vitamin D, and so forth. She, too, goes to bed early at 8 p.m., but she does 6,000 to 9,000 step walk before that, and does a calming ritual and stretching and mobility before that. So, again, very dedicated to her regimen. Not too many other people in her life. Probably some surgical procedures along the way as well, or body-enhancing procedures. But nevertheless, all 3 of these people look good, and I would say younger than their stated age, but certainly very complicated when it comes to all of that. And the question is, what would you do to achieve something like that, or would you want it if you could have it? Fancy cars are really pretty, but, you have to insure them, and they're not that comfortable to ride. And so there's a lot of things to give and take that you give up. And that kind of comes along with a lot of the lifestyle things that we discuss. What can you do that fits your lifestyle in order to make yourself healthy that may not be something of someone else? And we all have different things that are important to us, families, and different things that may get in the way of our own needs or wants, but a lot of times they're very much worth it. I think it goes back to we're pack animals by nature, and we need each other, and life is better in the company of others, especially your family. So if you have to isolate yourself to live long, I'm not sure what the purpose is, other than just to live long. There's always the fear that all of these people have brought up that, you're the last person standing, and so what did you get if you're the last person on earth living and nobody else is around? So, I'm not poo-pooing their choices at all. I think it is a choice, but I do believe there's a compromise. I think when people become so regimented in what they do, they can perhaps, lose the forest for the trees. And none of these studies and none of the longevity people have, large amounts of data that this is going to work and this is going to be good overall. So again, I think it comes down to what can we do as a middle of the ground, so to speak, to improve our own health without eliminating others from our life. There's a lot of data being released and fight on to some degree on how low cholesterol should be, whether it should be lowered at all. What's the number? We've certainly decreased it over the years. We now look at LDL as being bad cholesterol. LDL is the cholesterol that goes under our endothelial cells. How low do we have to get it to be safe from cardiovascular disease? And, again, we come down to these all or nothing type of recommendations where as low as you go is the best thing that there could be. And, some people say, well, we need cholesterol, which we do, to make hormones and cell membranes and in our brain, but we don't need excessive amounts, meaning that if you still have very high levels in your blood, obviously you're not necessarily able to use it for good, so it's going to be depositive just like energy sources as, in some other storage mechanism, which could be a plaque underneath your arteries, just like we store excess calories in the form of fat. So we know very well that when people get old and start to have diseases, they can have low cholesterol. So some people say, well, see, the people that live the oldest have high cholesterols, and if your cholesterol is low as you get older, then that's a risk factor, and it truly is. We don't know the age at which, you want to start building up your cholesterol. So the timeline is still really fuzzy as far as lower your cholesterol, lower your cholesterol, lower your cholesterol. Now, don't lower your cholesterol. We don't know where that is and at what cholesterol and how low before we don't have enough to bail us out of the problems that we ultimately might face as we get older. One of the ways that the mighty drug Repatha, which is a PCSK9 inhibitor, works is that it decreases the degradation of these LDL receptors in our body. So if you have LDL in your bloodstream, you need receptors to get it out of your bloodstream so that it won't cause deposition into your arteries. And we know as we age, we lose these LDL receptors, and things like aging, chronic disease, inflammation, malnutrition, cancer, liver disease, they can also decrease these lipoprotein carriers and cause problems. But severe lowering of LDL might actually be associated with an increase in glucose, so it's almost an over-medication. The mechanism by which it's increased the LDL uptake by the pancreatic cells and insulin secretion decreases and glucose goes up. So there's a point where some of this lowering can backfire, and again, it can backfire as we age, that when we need it, we don't really have it, and the question is when we're going to need it. I don't really believe that Mother Nature makes mistakes, so the cholesterol that we're born with a healthy young body is probably what we kind of like going forward, and it's, again, as we age and we start to accumulate LDL because we can't get rid of cholesterol, that things probably become a problem. And certainly diet is a big part of that. So I don't think that, there are people that will argue that what you eat doesn't affect your cholesterol, but it does. We know that saturated fat is used by the liver to generate cholesterol, and people on a high-fat diet tend to have high LDLs. Those people tend to say, well, it doesn't matter, but again, very high levels of LDL can cause havoc in the right individual with, again, other factors that lead to cardiovascular disease. Nothing happens in a vacuum. You need more than one thing going on, but when you start to add these things up, it can be an issue. So I think most people agree that extremely high levels are not good and extremely low levels are not good. Again, back to that, what you came with is probably about the range that you'd like to have. And if you can achieve that with a nutritional adjustment as you age, it's probably the best way around it. Now, the new guidelines came out, and everybody's interpreting them a little bit different. If you've seen the upside-down food pyramid, saturated fat, oil, and meat, and poultry are up there, along with fruits and vegetables. So if you look to the right side, you can see a plant-based diet full of vegetables and fruit and avocados and grains being down at the bottom. If you're a carnivore, you can see the meat and the saturated fat. If you read the fine print, they say, well, the saturated fat should still be around 10%. Other proponents say, oh, no, saturated fat is back, carbohydrates are out, finally we're going to come to a paleo diet and everybody's going to be healthy again. I think the problem with that is that we've still not changed what's at the restaurants that the majority of people go to, and the fast food and the ease at which people can get excessive amounts of calories. So, well, that pyramid is good when you look at whole foods. If you eat a whole food diet, you're probably going to be much better off than if you eat a fast food diet or a boxed diet with all the other chemicals and things in it. But again, saturated fat, being a part of that, is going to let your body be able to make more cholesterol. So all in all, it really hasn't changed my approach to nutrition at all. Again, I see it as positive. Everybody agrees that there should be less processed food in people's diet. A junk food vegan diet is no better than a junk food paleo diet, so if you're eating cookies and, the Atkins bars and all those things that are processed, it's not going to be any healthier than eating the processed fake foods that vegans eat. So the idea is to how do you, put more real food into your diet, more organic food in your diet, less chemicals into your diet. There is an enzyme that is called, or maybe referred to as a longevity regulator called AMPK. It's basically a metabolic control enzyme that is made to respond to low energy levels or levels or periods of stress. There are stressors that activate longevity genes without damaging the cells. So we know that our bodies, and it's kind of funny, hard things make people better, and hard things and stressors to the body also make the body better. The paradox is we're always looking for the easy way out and the hacks, but the stressors to our body actually activate some of these longevity genes, which AMPK is. And but it stresses the body, but it doesn't damage the cells. So again, you want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. If you damage the body beyond what it can repair itself, then obviously you didn't make any progress. So we want stress that activate these longevity genes, but not destroy our bodies in the process. And these are things like exercise, running, fasting, low-protein diets, which is very interesting because, again, the food pyramid suggests that we need to increase our protein. Hot and cold exposure. And these are called hormesis. In general, they're a good thing. They're stressor to the body that don't destroy our cellular function. When we exercise, i.e. run, walk, do things that are vigorous, it stresses our body and we produce more NAD, which increases our energy production. When we increase our energy production, our body responds by making more oxygen-carrying capillaries. We activate these AMPK with exercise despite what we're eating. And new blood vessels can be formed. There's improvement in heart and lung health. There's extension of the telomeres, which are the end caps on the genes that keep them from breaking down. There's increased overall strength. And it doesn't take a whole lot of exercise to induce this. 5 miles a week can actually decrease the risk of a heart attack by 40%, all-cause mortality by 55%. So much better odds than you're going to get with a statin for sure. But there's another thing that actually affects AMPK, and that's sunlight. And how that works is that sunlight induces, through our skin, a peptide called the mitochondrial-derived peptide, MOTC, that are very prevalent in young muscles, but as we age, decrease. So sunlight actually helps us to make these MOTC peptides that help to utilize AMPK and manage cell stress. And that sunlight comes from UV radiation. So full spectrum sun is able to, again, on your skin, activate this MOTC peptide. The sunlight induces AMPK activation, and this is both with UVB and UVA sun. It behaves in the same way as a metabolic stressor that increases phosphorylation in the skin, both in the keratinocytes and the fibroblasts. It can activate AMP to also promote DNA repair, antioxidant defenses. There have been a couple studies using non-natural light that have shown too much of a good thing could be bad, but it's never been shown to be bad with full spectrum sun. The sunlight also causes this AMPK to move from the nucleus of the cell into the cytosol, which allows the cell to start cleaning up debris and old cells and acts as a photo repair type of enzyme. All of this tends to make our genes and our cells more resilient and to get rid of the old and decaying cells. So the sunlight actually helps us clear house in a easy type of way. And in fact, it's so potent, the sunlight in this AMPK, that it actually mimics exercise. So, if you want a biohack, go sit in the sun. But you should, double the hack, exercise while you're in the sun. But the sunlight exposure can actually end up decreasing your blood glucose for about 30%. So I dare you to go out with sunscreen or sunglasses with your glucose sensor on and see what happens to your glucose. Over time, it actually stabilizes our response to environmental factors such as intense heat or light and the disruption that goes along with it. So very interesting, again, more things that the sun can do for us than we should fear the sun. So to summarize fairly quickly, stress is good. Stress to the body, stress to our system, both in the form of exercise, caloric restriction, heat, cold exposure. And one way of looking at the potential discomfort of doing some of these things is not about the effort of doing them or about the actual feeling while doing them, but the ultimate outcome after doing them. When we think about the good things that can happen to us as an end result of stressing our bodies, we can get a dopamine response from our brain, which makes us feel better about the effort that we're actually pursuing and kind of get you out the door, so to speak, a similar or maybe a somewhat of a motivating factor. But I think it comes down to, a sedentary, stagnant body is a body that is going to continue to fail at a pretty quick rate. So the question is, what can you do short of taking $300 worth of supplements every day to improve your lifestyle? The no-brainer is, if you're not exercising every day or moving your body, then it's important that you start. You can make the benefits of that exponential by getting outside to do that movement. There are many more benefits of doing hard things than just taking a supplement and sitting on the couch. One way to look about how much processed food you're eating is to look in your recycle bin. How many boxes do you have? How many cans? How many bags do you have in there that are full of ingredients that are a paragraph long? If you pick up something that you're going to eat and there's a giant paragraph, perhaps, add up the words for the day to see just how much processed food you're getting into, and things that, if you can't pronounce, probably aren't helping your body much. All three of these people move their body and do a significant amount of exercise. So I think that's something that you can take heed to, that it's a must. You must move your body, you must stress your body, and exercise on a daily basis in order to preserve it. I would guess that I'd probably put a lot of money into the fact that most of these people don't prepare their own food or are feeding anybody else. So how do you prepare meals that you can feed your family and everybody benefit from and get all the nutrients that they need? It's probably pretty unrealistic to think that you're going to eat 3 things after having made a bunch of different things for your family. And that is one thing that, I hear a lot of. It's too tiring to make 3 different meals, for a meal for the kids, meal for my husband, meal for myself. And it is too much of a hassle. I can't imagine the waste that goes into that. It's also frustrating if you make somebody a meal that you think is very healthy, maybe is healthy, and everybody turns their nose up to it. And that can lead to frustration and people giving up on, giving it a go. So meeting them in the middle, meeting your expectations in the middle, is a really good way to start with just cleaning up your diet a little bit, eliminating some of the boxes, adding some more fresh vegetables to the mix, substituting some of the sauces that you purchase or cheese that you purchase with, cheese sauces made from carrots and potatoes or cheese sauces made even from cashews is a good beginning compromise, adding more fruit to your breakfast. I heard somebody, throw an oatmeal under the bus with this new food pyramid, and, it's like I really have a hard time believing that oatmeal and fruit is what took society down and made us all morbidly obese and gave us all diabetes. I don't really think that that's it. It's a good breakfast for a lot of people. You can vary it up and change it out, but most of the time it's the extra things that people start to eat in addition to that cause the problems. How do you get more greens in your diet, both at lunch and at dinner? Some people say they don't have time to make their lunch. There's always the bagged salads. There's always frozen vegetables. So look for the greens and, a bean source or a protein source and, a fruit. It can make it very simple for a lunch. I always tell people to try to make a little extra at dinner so they have leftovers to take. So if you're somebody that travels for work or out, and they even sell little tiny one-person crock pots if you're working someplace that doesn't have a microwave that you can heat up leftovers from the night before, which can always be good. So any kind of frozen green, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, that all can be warmed up for a lunch the next day. People often tell me they eat very healthy, but then they snack all evening, and or they eat pretty healthy and then they snack in the afternoon. Typically, that is because they don't like what they're eating and they don't eat very much of it, and they're not full, so they have to snack after dinner. So the point being, find food that you like, that you're going to eat enough of it that you're full, be mindful enough to know when you're getting full, push back from the table, and then wait for the next meal instead of looking for snacks to fill in because you really didn't like what you ate in the first place. So you have to kind of do an honest assessment. If you hate what you're eating and you're eating bird food and you're starving to death, and then you grab a bag of chips or a bag of cookies because you just can't stand it any longer, you're not getting anywhere. So some compromises have to be made. Throwing a little education in at the dinner table never hurt anybody. Talking a little bit about the benefits of broccoli, perhaps, different things, the protein in broccoli. Go to people's strengths, your family members. If people are interested in muscles, let's talk about protein. If people are interested in not getting cancer or heart disease, let's talk about greens. How do you do this? Not getting indigestion, maintaining a good weight. Somebody's always looking for something. And you can shove or steer the plate into what makes people happy. Getting out and getting that sunlight to stimulate your AMPK is the best done in the morning and the evening. So if you can get out at sunrise and sunset, that's wonderful. If you have the opportunity to eat lunch out at a park bench, that's wonderful. But certainly get the morning and evening sun has a tremendous amount of benefits. And skip the sunscreen and all those chemicals, and skip the sunglasses. If sunglasses were going to prevent eye disease, we wouldn't have eye disease, because you see a multitude of people with with sunglasses on, and we still have a lot of ocular disease. Our eyes are the pathway to our brain, and all the photons from the sun and all the chemical reactions that we get from the sunlight turning on all these different genes is extremely important. So why would we block our pathway to our brain with sunglasses? I don't know. So there you have it, free longevity hacks. Get out in the sun and exercise. Stay away from the box food and the fast food restaurants, and life will be a lot better. But don't put yourself in nutritional jail to the point where you can't, or you're going to have a breakout for sure. So start where you are, mark it down, and work your calendar or work your diary of how things are going and see the progress that you're going to make so that you can track things. I hope this gives you some ideas for the new year, and you can start making your own plan and writing your own script for a healthy, happy 2026. Thanks as always for listening. I'll talk to you after long haul.